This episode, I will discuss one of the well-known blood gangs and their fierce rivalry with the neighborhood Crips. The blood gang I'm talking about is the Inglewood families. The Inglewood's family history goes back at least 5 decades. They started off as many names and identities. According to original chain gang member Sinbad, the Dirty Dozen was the first group, having 12 members at the time. Then later growth, they became known as the Chain Gang. He would say they got the name for using chains and fight from being outnumbered by the Crips. Around 1972 or 73, the Inglewood family name would come. Later they would take on the blood identity, taking the name Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods, and having many different cliques under that family umbrella. The Inglewood families had good relationship with blood gangs like the Mad Swans, the Avenue Pirus, the Crenshaw Mafias, and some other blood gangs. By being Bloods, they got into it with some blood sets, some being the Queen Streets and the different lanes, despite them being on good terms at a point. The Inglewood families have a deep hatred for neighborhood Crip gangs, especially the 60s, the 90s, and gangs in the 100s. This deep hate will have them have an unofficial truce with the A-Trade gangsters, because they both hated neighborhood Crip gangs that much. They're also on good terms with Hoover sets. Neighborhood Crips are a bunch of gangs that are aligned together from all over LA County. I mentioned some of them in the first 2 videos, in the Hoovers versus the Neighborhood Crips Part 1 and Part 2. Check those out if you haven't already. But the Neighborhood Crips have too many hoods to name, and they all have their own history and identities, so only a few will be discussed in this episode. I will go into cases involving the Neighborhood Crips and the Inglewood families. July 25th, 2005. Carolyn Whitfield lived in an apartment complex. She heard gunshots and ran to the front door to look out for her son, who was taking out the trash at the time. She said she seen 2 men get into a car and drive away. Her son laid over a flower bed screaming. He was shot 4 times and he would lose his life. Carolyn would go to the police station and give police a description. She picked Derek Roberts and Derek Cooper out of the lineup. Alberta Vaults was also a witness who seen the whole thing. She said she seen 2 men tell another man, "What's up, blood?" Then they started shooting. Marcus Anderson was another witness in the case. He identified both men and picked them both out of a lineup. Another woman would come forth on her own. She was Derek Cooper's girlfriend. She would tell the police that both Dereks were actually Rolling 60 Crip members. She said she was with them and drove by the shooting scene multiple times. She said they drove back because they wanted to make sure that the victim was gone. She said that both men wore red and said blood to throw people off. It was said that the Rolling 60 members were looking to get an Inglewood family member. But Carolyn's son was not actually from Inglewood family. He just lived in the area and was from neighborhood Piru. Derek Roberts and Derek Cooper were both sentenced to 50 years to life. This next case happened on April 1st of 2007. A man named Andrew was driving in the Rolling 90 Crip area. He was from Inglewood family. He would see Michael Hall on the street. Michael Hall and him knew each other and had run-ins in the past. Michael would begin firing at his car. A man named Kenneth who was in the car would lose his life. A Rolling 90 member named Tony would tell police that Michael did the shooting and he seen the whole thing. Michael would say he didn't do the shooting, and his alibi was that he had a party at his house. The police would tell Michael that Tony told them where they could find the gun. Also, that his fingerprints matched the gun. He would say his fingerprints only were on the gun because many members of the 9-0s have held the gun in the past. This was determined not to be true, and with testimony from Tony and Andrew, he was proved to be a member of the 9-0s, putting in work on the enemy driving through his hood. Michael Hall was sentenced to 59 years to life. The next cases will be about Marquise Brown, a member of the 5'8 neighborhood Crips. August 4th, 2007. A party was held in Lancaster at Daniel Henry's apartment. A man named Rasham arrived with his cousin Eric and Brandon to the party. Rasham would walk outside the party early and wait to be picked up by another family member. He was then approached by Marquise while sitting outside. Marquise would tell Rashawn he was from 5'8 neighborhood Crip. Rashawn's cousins and whole family was from Inglewood families, rivals of the neighborhood Crips. Marquise would diss Inglewood families to Rashawn's face. Rashawn thought they would fight because he didn't back down from Marquise. Marquise would walk into Daniel's apartment, but would later return moments later and put a gun to Rashawn's head. Marquise would tell Rashawn to diss Inglewood families, or he was going to smoke him. Rashawn would manage to walk down the alley and get away, but Marquise followed. Marquise began firing at Rashawn. He would hit him in the leg. Rashawn would later testify about this in court. August 5th, 2007. The next night, another party was thrown at Daniel's home. Marquise would be there again, and so would Rashawn's cousin Eric. Eric was a member of the Inglewood families. He would diss neighborhood Crips to Marquise's face. Marquise would pull out his gun and tell him he would blow his head off. Eric would run to his car and try to drive off, but Marquise would fire at the car. Marquise would then shoot up Daniel's apartment, and he would hit another person named LaJoy Davis in the back. Eric would refuse to testify in court, but Rashawn and LaJoy would testify, and Marquise Brown would be charged with those two shootings and a third separate shooting. Marquise Brown was sentenced to 128 years to life. This next case involves a Rolling 30 member being a victim. I said before, the 30s are not neighborhood Crips, but they're a close ally, with them being Rolling O's. DeLorean Foreman was a member of the Rolling 30 Crips. He would get into an altercation with an Inglewood family member named Rod Travion Woods at a car show. Weeks later, on July 3rd, 2009, they would run into each other at a car wash. Rod Travion would approach DeLorean and say, "I heard you was looking for me." DeLorean would tell him, "If I was looking for you, I would have found you." Rod Travion would then pull out a gun and shoot 4 to 5 times, hitting DeLorean in the stomach. DeLorean would snitch. He would tell the police the person who shot him name was B-Mac from Inglewood families and what car club he belonged to. He even told the police that he drove a green Camaro. He would later pick him out of a lineup. Rod Travion Woods will be sentenced to 40 years to life. This last case happened on August 20th of 2016, where rapper Kid Cali, who was a neighborhood Crip, would lose his life. A big party was thrown in Granada Hills. It was advertised all over social media. About 200 to 300 people attended the party. The house had cameras all through it, so everything was caught on camera. Kenny Burdine would come to the party around 7:40 p.m. Around 8, he would yell at Kid Cali. As Kid Cali turned around to see where the yelling was coming from, Kenny shot at him 4 to 5 times. The house would erupt in chaos, and Kenny would run away before standing over Kid Cali. A man named Steven seen the whole thing and called 911. Kenny showed up to the party with other Inglewood family members, and they were the ones who handed him the gun and told him to shoot Kid Cali. Kid Cali and one of the Inglewood family's OG members would have an altercation at the party, where Kid Cali would introduce himself and say he was a 9-0 Crip. The Inglewood family member would respond by dissing him and showing disrespect in general. It would be an altercation, but it would be broke up. The OG family member would convince Kenny to do the shooting. Kenny would say he handed him the gun, and after the shooting, he said he returned the gun back to the OG member. Kenny said he only did the shooting because they felt threatened by the Crips being outnumbered. He was caught with another gun while being arrested, but not the one used in the shooting. He would say that gun belonged to the OG and that the OG member left to Arizona. Kenny Burdine will receive 50 years to life. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, check out all my previous videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.